What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Evan here. We're back at it again with another tier list video. I've got my friends again here, Carter and Spence. Say hi, you guys.
Hello.
Hello again.
They were here on the last video, had a pretty good time, so we decided to do another one. For this time around, it's going to be a little bit less memey, and we're going to be going over ranking killers based solely on their teachables. So, in other words, if you have a fresh Day by Daylight account, which are the best killers to level up for their perks alone? So, for example, a killer might be S tier in a regular tier list, but if their teachable perks are, as you can see right here, poo-poo garbage, then they might be in that tier. So let's just hop right into it. We're going to be going chronologically from when they first released. First, the kind of mascot of the game here, the Trapper. The Trapper's main perks are Unnerving Presence, Brutal Strength, and Agitation. Who wants to start off here?
I personally would stick him in B tier. I think Brutal and Agitation are really good in certain builds, um, but maybe not like win the game every time.
I would say C. I think we all agree Unnerving Presence is worthless,
Purple
but
garbage.
I agree Brutal Strength is generally pretty useful. Agitation definitely has its uses as well.
I'm pretty high on Agitation. I think Agitation is like an A perk. I think Brutal Strength is like B to C. Unnerving Presence is pretty bad. So it's tough. I'm leaning. If I had a C plus tier, I put it in C plus. What do we think about between B or C? We had a vote.
I think I'd.
Already said B for me.
Carter says B, I say C. You're the tiebreaker, looks like.
C
Uh,
plus
I'll
plus.
I'll
Edit
put
the code.
I'll put him in C. I think Agitation's really saving Trapper here. I think Agitation's a really solid perk.
Okay.
Next perk or killer we have is Wraith. I know me and Carter are big fans of the Wraith as the killer, but for the perks we have Predator, Bloodhound, Shadowborn. I
You
think
know, I
we
had to
all
do it too.
agree. I think we all think it's poo poo garbage.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Some of the three worst perks in the game. Shadowborn is okay on some killers like Huntress, I think, and killers where you want to be able to see a lot of the screen at once to be able to track people. Other than that, Bloodhound is baked into a lot of different add-ons and killers. Predator, it's only good on Spirit, maybe. So it's
Yeah.
yeah. So that's
Very good power, very bad teachables.
yeah, pretty terrible teachables. And again, I think I said this before, but we're not taking into account DLC or free to play. It's just assuming all killers are available to you. Next is going to be Hillbilly. He's got Enduring, Lightborn, and Tinkerer. I'll start this one off. I think Tinkerer is one of the best killer perks in the game. So that really shoots him up. I think Enduring is solid. It's a above average perk. Lightborn situationally is great. At other times, it might not be used at all.
I'm
I
gonna
put him
say
in A.
A.
Yeah.
A.
I think so as well. I think A is where I was going to put it. Tinker is a huge boost.
Yeah.
And Enduring, I
Tinker is
think,
S
isn't.
tier for sure.
I
I would
think,
say probably B tier for like Enduring and Lightborn. B plus maybe for Enduring.
yeah, I think I would agree with that exactly. Read my mind there, Spence. Next, we're going to have the Nurse. We have Strider. Again, this is post nerf Strider. Thanatophobia and A Nurse's Calling. Carter, what do you think?
I put her at S. Like, it would have been an easy S before the nerf with Strider. Now it's a little bit shaky between S and A for me, but I think Thanat and Nurses are both so good on like almost every killer.
Yeah, I think Nurse's Calling is good on just about any killer, especially killers that can get you injured easily, like Nurse, Spirit, Wraith, people like that. A lot of hit and run people. Um, I'm leaning. I think Strider post nerf is one of the worst perks in the game for killers. After the nerf, it was great on Spirit. Now it's not great on anybody. So I'm leaning A, maybe B, just because I'm not as big on Thanat. Um, I think it's really good, but I think there are better slowdown perks. Spence, what do you think?
I don't think post nerf Strider is as bad as you say it is, but I agree with your overall placement. I think A.
Okay. I think on average for all three of us, it averages A. I'd personally put it in B because I think Striders are that bad, but we can leave it in A. I just, as a Spirit main, the one who would the only person who would run Strider, and now I don't see a use for it. But that's just me. We can move on. Next we have the Shape, Michael Myers, Daddy Myers,
Mr. Myers himself.
Mr. Myers. We have Save the
for Daddy, but
yeah. Let's just throw him in Daddy tier. No, I'm just kidding. For his perks, we have Save the Best for Last, Play with Your Food, and Dying Light. I think we can all agree Dying Light is not good. Dying Light's not good. His other two perks, however, Save the Best for Last and Play with Your Food, a lot to be said about those perks.
Yeah, Dying Light is. I've seen it used effectively in some niche builds, but not a lot of general utility there. But the other two, very solid.
Yeah, I put him in C personally because if this is, with the perspective of you're just starting the game, while Save the Best for Last and Play with Your Food are really good, they take a lot of planning and knowledge to use them really well.
Yeah, I guess maybe we're coming at this with two different ideas. I'm not exactly coming at it with I'm a rank 20 player and my skills at rank 20. It's just more which killer do I level up and put all my blood points into to get their perks first. If that makes sense.
Even still, I think I would be putting them in C tier.
I personally put him in B. I think Save the Best for Last is really solid. On any killer that focuses on M1, Save the Best for Last because you can easily finish chases. Someone like Wraith especially, you can hunt people down quick. Play with Your Food is the only perk in the game, I think, besides Noed that gives killer speed.
As far as I know.
Fire Up, doesn't it give you speed as well?
Speed in
it gives you
actions.
Yeah, it gives you action speed. Movement speed, yeah. Noed and Play with Your Food are the only two perks that do. And Noed is a kind of minor-ish. It's 3 or 4%. Yeah. Play with Your Food is 5% per token. You can have up to 3. I personally, I think he belongs in B, but it'll be an average of what we all think.
I think he's another strong contender for a C+ tier, to be honest. Along with Trapper there.
Carter, what'd you say again?
I said C.
All right, we'll put him in. I'll begrudgingly put him in C. I think he deserves B.
Wow.
But
I do think very much a Daddy tier.
Tell me about it. Next, we have the Hag. This is where clearly hexes are introduced into the game. We have Hex the Third Seal, Hex Ruin, and Hex Devour Hope. Right off the bat, I think S. Do you guys have any disagreements?
I would lean more towards A. Ruin is obviously the whole meta of the game at this point for killers, but Third Seal is pretty useless. And Devour, depending on how well or poorly you play, you might not get any use out of it. It's really strong if you can get it, but if it RNG, you might not be able to use it at all. At least Ruin, even if they cleanse it quickly, you get something.
What do you think, Spence? I feel pretty strongly about this one, but I'd like to get your take.
I definitely agree with you about Ruin. Ruin is meta for a reason. It is probably the most reliable regression perk in the game, despite being a hex.
One reason I think S is because, in my opinion, I think Ruin and Devour Hope are 2 top 10 killer perks in the entire game. I think if one character has 2 top 10 perks, I think that's S tier. Hex, our Third Seal, isn't useless, but the problem is we play with Survive with friends. If you're in solo queue, that perk is a lot stronger because you won't be able to see anybody, and you'll be blind, I believe, after the hook as well. I think you're just blind the rest of the game until it's
permanently until it
cleansed.
Activates on enough characters for it to go away. It affects up to 3 characters at once, I think.
Yeah, and I think with Ruin I think is either the best or second best perk in the game, and then Devour Hope's top 10. So I personally think S, but again, it's an average of what we think.
You make a good point about the solo queues, so I think I'm going to fall on the side of S here.
All right, well, we got 2 votes for S there. Next we have the Doctor, our boy Herman Carter. We love him. We got Overwhelming Presence, Monitor and Abuse, and Overcharge.
I think it's appropriately D for Doctor in my opinion.
Yes, I agree.
I'd agree. I think Overcharge is one of those perks that gets worse the higher rank you are.
Out of the bottom ranks, Overcharge is...
I think Monitor is really good though. That's the one thing saving him from poo-poo garbage.
Yeah.
Monitor. I think Monitor is like an A tier perk.
Yeah.
But his other perks are like pretty bad. I would agree. I think, are we all good with D?
Yes, I think so.
Next we have Huntress. That's going to be Beast of Prey, Territorial Imperative, and Hex Huntress Lullaby.
I'm sorry to do it to my Russian lady here, my beautiful Russian lady, but I think she's poo-poo garbage.
I absolutely agree. Spence, anything there?
I third the motion.
I'm sorry, Anna. Don't take it personal.
Yeah, that was a quick one. These are some of the
two
three
of my favorites.
Yeah, I know some of the three.
Has the best singing voice out of all the hunters.
She absolutely does.
I don't know. Trickster might say something about that. He is a K-pop boy, so the K-pop stands on Twitter are gonna come for us.
Yeah, we have to watch what we say, or you're gonna get attacked.
I'm gonna get canceled.
Yeah.
Next we have
your house.
the Cannibal Bubba. His perks are Knockout, Barbecue and Chili, and Franklin's Demise. I think this will be an interesting one where we place him based on all three combined. I think we can all agree. Barbecue. Well, statistically, Barbecue is the most played killer perk in the game. Not just for its effect, but also because it gives double blood points. But most of the time, it gives double blood points for every game, which is incredible, especially if you're trying to grind. Franklin's got changed recently. The item doesn't disappear, but instead loses charges, which I think is a buff, personally. But it's give or take. What do you guys?
It changes it from an all or nothing perk to one that's a little more consistent.
Yeah, you'll always get use out of Franklin's. Sometimes you can just get hit, come back to it, and pick it up.
Yeah.
What do you guys think on the total rankings, though?
Yeah. I think the change to Franklin's also makes it a little more merciful for survivors, which I like as a survivor player. It means you're not going to lose the item. Even if it runs out of charges, you can still at least pick it up and potentially save it if you survive.
But as a killer, all that really matters is they can't use it during the game I'm in with them.
Yes. So basically, it was a buff that was a change.
I think it was arguably a buff for both sides. Yeah, yeah, exactly. What do you think, Carter, on as far as ranking goes?
As much as I love the alliteration theme and would love to put him in B for Bubba, I do genuinely think he's an A tier. Barbecue's obviously so good. I think Franklin's is also really strong when you sing it correctly and getting important items like hitting medkits and flashlights out of survivors' hands. Obviously, it doesn't impact keys. Terrifying item as a killer. Still, taking away those medkits and flashlights really swings the game in your favor. And even Knockout, I think, is his weakest perk, but it still definitely has.
I don't think. Yeah, Knockout's not a bad perk at all. It's not bad. So
it's pretty devastating.
I agree. I think that's 2 votes for A. Spence, do you say A as well, or you think something else?
That's the third one. Yep.
Cool.
Wow, we're unanimous.
Wow.
We did
next, we have the Nightmare, Freddy Krueger. His perks are going to be Fire Up, Remember Me, and Blood Warden. Right off the bat, this kind of screams either D or poo-poo garbage. What do you guys think?
I think poo-poo garbage.
I'm going to say D. I think that Fire Up is mostly not very useful. Remember Me is only really useful combined with other endgame perks. But Blood Warden, even without other endgame perks, I think definly has its uses and can really clutch a game.
Is Blood Warden the one where once you hook someone, when the exit gates are opened,
it blocks them?
Exit gates have to be open, and then you have to hook somebody while those gates are open.
You know,
I think I put him in D on Blood Warden alone.
Carter, you said poo-poo garbage?
Yeah, I think anybody who has just straight perks that are all based around the end game, like if you really need something to help you in the end game, you might as well just get no-ed, in my opinion.
I'm kind of leaning poo-poo garbage as well. Against like competent survivors that like aren't going to throw the game for altruism, Blood Warden doesn't do anything because a lot of the times you might just leave. Also, if the exit gates are open, or they can 99 the gate, exactly. Fire Up it gives such minor benefit. I wish Fire Up was better. It's the only perk in the game that lets you pick up and drop people faster, which is really unique, but it's so minor.
One other thing to keep in mind with Blood Warden is that it also lets you see the auras of survivors inside the gate area, which is not a huge amount of information, but it does give you some very key things like knowing whether they're coming for the save or not.
Yeah, I just think as a general rule of thumb, if you have a perk that literally it does nothing at the start of the game, like a Devour, Fire Up, Noed, the power needs to be really strong to make up for that because you're starting off the game with less perks. So I think I'm leaning Poo Poo Gar. I was thinking D actually at the start of this, but Carter made some good arguments there. Next we've got Amanda Young, aka the Pig. Her perks are going to be Hangman's Trick, Surveillance, and Make Your Choice.
I'll be honest, I don't even know what Hangman's Trick does.
I don't either.
Okay, I'm not alone.
I'm opening the tab here. It says unlocks your potential, or reading. You get a notification when another survivor starts sabotaging a hook. While carrying a survivor, the aura of any survivor within 6 meters of the hook is revealed.
I guess it's just preventing sabos.
It's very anti-sabo perk. So,
with I'd say a weak side of information gathering, since you can still see someone who happens to be next to a hook across the map.
You know, shockingly, I think this is like a light B, maybe a C.
I was personally leaning towards C.
I'm thinking C as well. Surveillance and Make Your Choice definitely have their uses.
I think Surveillance is super strong, especially in the meta that we're in with Ruin. Pairing Surveillance with Ruin is so strong because you can chase someone off a gen, and then you get the gen turns yellow, and I think a notification. I don't remember, but the gen turns yellow for 16 seconds once they're back on it. So that's a long time. So you get a lot of just free information.
I would say Surveillance is probably her most reliable perk.
I think
Choice is very potent, but also a little bit hit or miss.
I don't think Surveillance is underrated. I just think it's underappreciated. I think it's like a solid A+ perk. I think it's really good. Hangman's Trick kind of sucked. Make Your Choice is good. The expose lasts for a minute. That's a long time. That's a really long time for an expose to last.
It's like a haunted ground every time somebody saves.
If you're far enough away, yeah.
Also a scream so that you can potentially identify who did the saving.
Are we thinking on average from both of you from C? Did I persuade you at all for B tier?
I don't know, because personally, like Surveillance, I do agree is her best perk, but given the option, I would just rather run Tinker if it achieves a better version of that perk.
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with C.
All right. Next, we have our boy, the Clown. We've got Bamboozle. How do you say that? Chlorophobia and Pop.
Chlorophobia.
Yeah, what you said. What
you
said. There's a reason I don't know how to pronounce it.
Sorry that it's not Crumpet.
Fear of clowns.
So, let's start off with his worst perk. Chlorophobia. How do you say it?
Chlorophobia.
Phobia. Can't even say it.
His
His worst perk has the worst pronunciation because it's garbage. I think it's probably the worst slowdown. It's not the worst slowdown perk.
It doesn't slow down gen. It's only healing.
It slows down healing in your terror radius, which is like
I have seen it really stuff survivor plays on 1 or 2 occasions, but I would say it's definitely like a D tier perk.
I think it's like an F tier perk. I think it's terrible. I think it's a terrible perk.
The main redeeming feature, I would say, is that it prevents you from doing those cheeky pick your ally up off the ground plays because you have to sit there for a whole extra second or two.
Yeah, I think we can all agree Pop is like an S tier perk. That's a top. That's a top 10, possibly top 5 perk in the game.
Yes.
Bamboozle.
I personally really love Bamboozle.
Bamboozle is great.
I also love Myers.
I mean, Bamboozle
on Myers is so good.
Bamboozle is great on any killer that can break pallets easily and has either a one shot or just break pallets, like Blight, Hillbilly, Bubba, because or even Spirit to some extent, because Spirit can hear pallets, them going across pallets and then going through windows. Yeah. So I think overall. I think this might.
I think it's easy mid tier perk.
This might be a B, honestly.
Yeah,
I think Bamboozle and Pop are high enough to put it above C and D.
I could live with B.
I would agree. Yeah.
Just Pop is so good. We've got my favorite character and your two's least favorite character.
Pretty spirit main.
These two facts are related.
Go Spirit. We got
a lot of custom with you.
Yeah, well, you know how it be. We got Spirit Fury, Hex Haunted Ground, and Rancor. So Spirit Fury is good on builds where you're gonna get pallet stunned a lot. So someone like Hillbilly, certain Wraith builds.
Mm-hmm. I've used it on Legion for great effect.
Yeah,
a few times.
Haunted Ground. It's the one. I think the one hex perk that you get punished for cleansing.
Retribution.
Retribution.
Retribution. You're right. Thank you. Retribution as well. Rancor is it's like the perk where it's the anti-obsession perk. I think all of these perks are just fine to good or solid. I don't think any of them are great. None of them are bad. I think a B.
Yeah, my knee-jerk reaction is a B. Like they're all just kind of mid-tier.
I think Spirit Fury and Haunted Ground are B, and then like Rancor is like B plus.
Yeah.
All right, Spirit, look at you. You're not S tier in this list, but that's okay.
Can't win them all.
For Legion, we have Discordance, Mad Grit, Iron Maiden. Spence is our resident Legion player. What do you think?
I think we'll all agree Discordance is at least A tier.
Oh, God, I was gonna say
that's why I said at least.
I was gonna say at least S tier. Oh my God, Discordance is fantastic.
I have run into the issue occasionally with running Discordance of if the survivors know it's there, they can play around it and deny you information.
Although I will say there is no way in the game for them to know for a fact you have Discordance.
True, if they suspect you have Discordance.
Yeah,
and I have had games where I run it and I almost never get pinged by it. Because
then you also have the added information that then nobody's doubling up on gens, and naturally that's going to slow the progress. So either you get information or you slow down the game.
This is true. It is a little bit of a win-win in that regard, kind of like Thrilling Tremors, which I guess we're going to get to in a few minutes here.
Mad Grit, kind of bad.
Yeah.
Useful and very niche, like if you want to run like say a Starstruck Agitation build or something.
Yeah, it's fun but kind of bad.
I would say D tier Mad Grit.
I would agree. I think Iron Maiden is super niche, but man, it can pay off big time.
Oh yeah.
I think it's a solid C tier. I'd put Iron Maiden in C as well. I think it's one of those perks that like usually niche perks aren't great because they're niche and they don't apply to every situation. But Iron Maiden just works perfectly. You scream, you get a notification, and they're exposed for I think 30 seconds out of any locker,
which is not a long time, but it'll get you the down here and there.
Yeah.
So I'm leaning B. I'm leaning B or C.
I was gonna say like A or B.
Yeah. I'd say B.
I think Mad Grit brings it down. I couldn't put Legion with Mad Grit in A.
Gordon's is so good.
Keep in mind,
I agree.
Power is not factoring into this anywhere.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think Discord. If I'm like trying to visualize it, Discordance is here, Iron Maiden's here, and Mad Grit is here. I think here is okay. Maybe A or B.
Yeah.
I think since they have two perks down there, he's a solid B plus. If I could put him in the middle, then I would. Just because Discordance is that strong, I think. Next we have Plague, Corrupt Intervention, Infectious Fright, and Dark Devotion. So I think we can all agree Corrupt Intervention is probably one of the best number
top 3
one
perks in the game.
Yeah, top 3 perk in the game. Every killer is good on. There's not a killer that would not want to run this at rank 3 for 2 minutes, which is so long. It's just there's nothing bad about it. It's just perfect.
It's crazy good.
It is crazy good. Infectious Fright is one of those perks that is I think it's super good. I don't think it's a top 10 perk. I don't know if that's a hot take. What do you guys think about Infectious Fright?
I dabbled in playing Plague for a little while. I had trouble getting value out of Infectious Fright. That might have just been because I didn't play it for very long, didn't get a lot of practice with it.
Unlike Spencer, I did not dabble in the sickness, but I have seen a lot of builds where Infectious Fright gets you so much value. So I would personally put it at like a B tier.
I
Like
put in.
especially with a lot of sneaky boys.
I think Infectious Fred is an A tier perk. I think it's like A minus. Is really solid. The bigger your terror radius, obviously if you can get a lot of downs quickly, like people like Nurse is terrifying. On Spirit, on people with one hit downs with a larger terror radius like Bubba or Hillbilly.
And also just against groups that are playing very altruistically and
also
will try
late
to
game.
interrupt your pickups.
Like if they're 3-gen, if you down
Yeah.
someone, you'll probably get at least one other person almost every time. So
True.
you know immediately where to go, because late game you're going to tend to slug a bit more.
Yeah.
I think we can move this. But I think she's a solid A, just because Corrupt is S tier, Infectious to me is an A tier. Dark Devotion we didn't really talk about. It's not a bad perk. It's just niche and harder to use.
Yeah, it's very fun. Like
Yeah.
Dark Devotion on like Hag in particular with a mint rag is a scary time.
I think
Because they just have no clue.
It's a fun stealth perk that people don't usually expect.
Yeah. So is A okay
I
with
think
everybody?
I'd personally say B plus maybe, but
What do you think, Carter?
I can live with A as well.
I want to keep it at an A personally, just because Corrupt is so good.
I think
Corrupt is
so
that
cool.
good.
Well, that's what I was talking about with Hag. I think Ruin is so strong, and also Devour Hope, that she's got to go in S for me. Same logic. Next we have the Ghostface. His perks are going to be I'm All Ears, Thrilling Tremors, and Furtive Chase. I don't remember what Furtive Chase does.
Furtive Chase is poo-poo garbage.
I'm looking at.
pretty
I only
bad.
don't. You lurk in the shadows, limiting your victim one by one. Your terror radius is reduced.
What happens is like
Yeah.
your session switches. You're better off probably running Nemesis.
Oh.
Yeah, your terror radius is smaller when you're in chase, which I can see that
that's-
maybe having some use if you want to chase one person without alerting
it's
other
the
people nearby.
It's the opposite of like Monitor, right?
Kind of.
To an extent. Okay.
Furtive Chase is his weakest perk by far.
That sounds pretty bad.
Mm.
But Thrilling Tremors, pretty solid perk. Great perk. I think it's
Like a or B tier.
I would say
I
a
would
solid A perk.
Yeah, I would consider both of them A tier. His other two.
I'd agree.
Yeah.
I think I'm All Ears is underused. It's a solid perk. Any rushed action, right?
Its main weakness is that
It's got cooldown.
is the long cooldown, and that players will occasionally tend to trigger when it's not helpful to you.
Yeah.
Like vaulting immediately after you start the chase before you're close enough to really make use of the aura reading. But still, when it helps you, it's really clutch.
Do you want to? I'm leaning B here.
I'm
I wanna
almost
say
leaning
A.
more C.
I want to
think
say A.
Furtive Chase is so bad.
You think A overall, Spence?
I do think A. Thrilling Tremors is that good in specific, and I'm All Ears is very solid on top of it.
But with Furtive Chase involved, you think overall it's still an A?
Yes.
Carter, you think C? You're really not as high.
Just like how we have Bubba up there despite having Knockout. I don't think Knockout is terribly useful. I think the same principle applies here with Furtive Chase.
I personally think Knockout's way better than Furtive Chase. I don't like either of them, but
I think Knockout's way better than Furtive Chase.
yeah.
I think
Thrilling, I think is really good, but I'm All Ears with that cooldown. I think it knocks it down quite a bit. And like Spencer says, if somebody just jumps immediately, their perk is wasted. You can't use it. So Thrilling is like the only really good, consistent perk that he has.
I'm just seeing all of the perks combined. I'm thinking B, and since Carter thinks C and Spence thinks A, that's going to be the average.
Yeah.
Where he's gonna land.
Okay.
Next, we're going to have Demogorgon. His perks are Surge, Cruel Limits, and Mindbreaker. Be honest, I don't remember what's Cruel Limits and Mindbreaker do.
Cruel Limits blocks windows.
Yeah, when you hit someone, I think it blocks all windows, and is it windows and pallets or just windows?
Just windows.
Within, I want to say 32 meters.
I don't remember the meter radius, but it's like everything like immediately in your vicinity while you're chasing.
Generator's repaired. Never mind.
It says when a generator is. Wait.
Locations.
Each time a generator is repaired, all windows and vault locations within 32 meters of it.
Okay. The pallets are like half blocked.
That's
if they're dropped, they're blocked.
That's terrible.
I think the main use of it is to prevent survivors from cheat sneakily finishing a generator in your face and then rushing for the nearest vault.
Yeah.
That just seems so bad, though.
Which is, yeah, it's such
It's not
a...
good.
Like 95% of the
uncommon
time,
occurrence.
95% of the time, the gen's gonna get done, and they're just gonna run
And
to
you're
the
not
next
even
one.
there.
They're gonna run the next one. You're not even there. That and also for the pallets, that's if they're already pulled and the killer hasn't destroyed them. This Coral Limit seems like a poo-poo garbage. I don't see why it would be.
It's generally considered pretty bad.
Okay,
as far as I know.
Mindbreaker. I think I remember. It does.
Mindbreaker-
Like exhaustion. Or
It
something.
exhausts you when you touch a
you're
gen.
yeah, whenever you're working on a generator, you're exhausted for I think 10 seconds afterward.
Which again,
it's
just
for
kind of prevents
5
those
seconds.
things pop in your face.
Yeah,
I don't think it's that good. 5 seconds of
I
exhaustion.
think Surge is easily his best. And I'd
Surge
say
is
Mindbreaker
fantastic.
second
I
best.
think Surge is a solid A tier perk.
Mm-hmm. Cruel Limits is bad enough, and Mindbreaker's not great either.
Yeah.
I'm leaning
I'm
either
leaning for
C or D.
C or D as well, I think. Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
The fact that
Surge is
Surge
very
goes
solid,
it goes
but
through
it's-
Ruin, which is unreal.
It is also hard to use effectively, though. Like, if you get a map where the generators are more spread out, if the survivors don't 3-gen themselves...
Well, it's not even if you get it off on one gen. Say, like, someone's working on a gen, they run off, you down them, like they're injured or they're exposed, and you down them. If Ruin's on the gen they were just working on, immediately 8% goes. That is so much progress.
That
lost
is still
on that
some
gen.
value, too.
That
So,
is even-
Yeah.
so you still get something there.
I'm leaning C, but I could be persuaded for D.
Again, this is me speaking personally. I've found that I have a little bit of trouble getting maximum value out of Surge when I play as it. That may be an inexperienced thing.
I'm so sitting on the fence right now. I could go either way. Like, I see the arguments for both. I do think Cruel Limits is poo-poo garbage.
Okay.
I think Mindbreaker's pretty poo-poo.
It's so close. It's so close. God. I think just my love for Surge is putting me over the top for C, but it is so close.
Yeah. He's on thin ice.
Yeah. You might not make it into the next season, Demo. That was a Stranger Things joke. Kill me. Next we have Oni. We have Zanshin Tactics, Blood Echo, and Nemesis.
My knee-jerk reaction is to put him in D tier.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to agree.
I think
Zanshin is useful as the killer equivalent of Windows of Opportunity, but you're not going to see it in high tier play. It's there to help you learn the environment.
Nemesis is only really good paired with other things.
Yeah, it's niche and below average. Same with
Nemesis has its uses with obsession-related stuff. Yeah, I'd say D is a good place here.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty easy one. Next we've got Deathslinger. For this we've got Gearhead, Deadman Switch, and Hex Retribution.
I love the Slinger, but I think he's poo-poo garbage.
I'm thinking about this one.
Retribution is his only really standout perk to me, and even that is just kind of a you cleansed my bones, so now you can't see things.
It's like
I'm thinking D. Retribution does more than just the blindness. It also reveals auras to you, which is really nice. I've caught you guys with it a couple of times.
Yeah,
I suspected you were going to be looking for hexes.
If they cleanse for Retribution, if they cleanse a Dull Totem, they're oblivious for 45 seconds. If they clean a Hex Totem, and this is any Hex Totem, so it could work multiple times. You have auras of all survivors for 10 seconds. So I think it's solid. I think it's like a B or C tier perk.
I would definitely put it in B. Deadman Switch, it's situational. It has its uses, but it's not great.
Yeah, I would
It's
agree.
pretty much outclassed by Thrilling Tremors.
And Gearhead's pretty bad,
Gearhead's
right?
bad. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So Gearhead's bad.
I want to say D for Deathslinger.
I'm leaning D as well. I think Retribution saves him from poo-poo garbage. Just barely.
If he didn't have Retribution, it'd be poo-poo garbage.
All right.
Despite Deadman Switch, which I will defend having a little bit of value.
Next we have Executioner with Forced Penance, Trail of Torment, and Deathbound. My knee-jerk reaction is poo-poo garbage.
Me too.
I want to say D as well for him, personally.
What saves him for you? What's saving
Trail
him?
of Torment. It's not great, but it has enough uses. Undetectable, I think, is a very nice status effect, and it gives you some information as well. If you watch when your undetectable ends, you'll know where one survivor is.
The problem is with Trail of Torment, it has a minute cooldown. And
yes,
also,
that is an issue.
If you're going to want to be undetectable, you could just run Tinkerer, because you don't have to do anything for Tinkerer, and there's no cooldown.
But you don't have control over when Tinkerer activates is the issue with that.
True, but Tinkerer activates when you want it to activate. You want it to activate when survivors are working on a gen, and a gen's getting close to getting finished, so you can disrupt that progress, and then have something like Pop or Ruin.
That's a good point. It is outclassed by Tinkerer. I will definitely give you that.
Yeah.
Plus, I don't think it's entirely devoid of value there. I've run a stealth build involving Trail of Torment, Dark Devotion, and I think it comboed pretty well. But
I think
that is really his only redeeming perk.
Yeah, Force Penance is poo-poo garbage. I think
it theoretically has some use against Survive with friends who are doing a lot of body blocking and stuff. But at the same time, those kinds of groups generally Broken's not going to bother them.
Carter, you still think poo-poo garbage?
Yeah, I'm unswayed.
Yeah, I am also unswayed, Spence. I think they're not good.
I'm only tempted to move him to D because of they've updated his flat rear end or whatever.
Oh yeah, they fixed the bug where he's a flat boy.
Flat. Yeah. D for donkey.
Next we have Blight, which is Dragon's Grip, Hex Blood Favor, and Hex Undying. This will be interesting, I think, to see where we place him.
Well, Undying is definitely the king of his perks here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a top 10, top 5 perk.
I personally like Dragon's Grip. It's not amazing, but I think it definitely has its uses.
I don't like Dragon's Grip for one reason. It has an
cooldown.
It has an 80-second cooldown, Spence. That is and there's no guarantee. Like if you can kick the gen and it lasts for 30 seconds?
It lasts until the gen stops regressing. Or do you mean the next 30 seconds?
Oh, yeah, so what happens is that I think the cooldown goes into effect after the exposed ends.
I was thinking of Trail of Torment again there.
So
and don't you find out it highlights yellow when Dragon Grips on it as a survivor, so you know not to touch it?
I don't think
Which I think is less of an issue now that Blast Mine also exists. In solo queue, at least.
The problem is if you don't down someone in the 60 seconds, that's 140 seconds of a per use of Dragon's Grip if you don't down them. That's longer than Corrupt, and we all know how long Corrupt lasts. So that's wild. I think Dragon's Grip is D to poo-poo garbage. I think Hex Blood Favor.
I put Dragon's Grip in C personally. Blood Favor, what does that one do again?
I think it's something to do with exhaustion.
I think it blocks pallets.
Yeah, it blocks. It holds all pallets in place for 15 seconds.
That's right.
Within 16 meters when you hit someone with your basic attack.
Mm-hmm. Which has
a 40-second cooldown.
Again, niche.
It's good if you hit someone in loops, and assuming that there's a pallet that they haven't pulled down yet.
Yeah.
And it's also a hex perk, so it can just get cleansed.
Yeah, and the simple way to get around it is pre-drop pallets.
I think it's that's another
I would say D tier hex for Blood Favor.
D tier to almost poo-poo garbage for me. I think the only thing that saves him is Hex Undying, so that's what I think. I don't know. I think overall, I think overall D or C. What do you think, Carter?
Really more towards C. I think Undying is so good, and you can get some value out of Dragon's Grip and Blood Favor. They're not total trash.
Mm-hmm.
So I lean more towards C.
C as well.
I'll put him in C. I'm lower on Dragon's Grip than I think both you guys. I think just the fact that if you don't down the person that's exposed, that's a 140-second cooldown. That's so long.
You could argue that about any exposed status effect thing. We put Haunted Grounds up way higher.
Well, sure, but it's for the whole team though.
I mean, even still, you got some stealth gods or loop gods. You could say that you're not getting any value out of that.
True.
I still think Haunted Grounds is better. Don't get me wrong, but just because you risk not getting value out of it, I think it doesn't drop it to a poo-poo garbage perk.
I think next we're gonna do twins, Hoarder, oppression and coup de grace. Well, so let's start with coup de grace. I think coup de grace, and I think it's good. It's okay. It's okay. I think it's okay. I don't know. It's a tough one.
It used on some builds. I struggle to really like a perk that is so easy to waste and has such limited charges.
Yeah.
You need to have a lot of self-control and I think know when to swing to get good use out of it.
It works well in the killers that I play of Spirit and Wraith. Mm-hmm. When you come out of stealth, it combines. It's ridiculous.
Scary on
Wraith. It's based unless there's like something they can immediately vault over. It's like a guaranteed hit from far away.
Yeah.
So, oppression and hoarder. I think isn't hoarder when they're working on chests, right?
Hoarder
I think it tells you more stuff.
Yeah, it spawns more chests, and I think you can see the aura of any survivor opening a chest.
Yeah. But it's like one of the few perks in the game that like kind of rewards the survivor. Like you're spawning more chests for them.
That seems really bad.
Yeah, oppression. Whenever you kick a gen, it causes I think 2 or 3 other random generators, 3 others, to start regressing as well. Triggers a difficult skill check. The skill check, unfortunately, can give the survivors more progress, which is a point against oppression.
Spence, you know what I'm going to say about oppression? The cooldown. 80 seconds. 80 seconds. That is a long time.
I think because of the downside of it giving survivors a skill check, I think the cooldown is actually a potentially a positive for it here. Because it means you're not going to give them too many skill checks and too many opportunities to get ahead.
Yeah.
I think it's a double-edged sword in this case.
Both of them are, yeah, hoarder and oppression, really.
But also with oppression, you could just run surge or ruin.
Oppression doesn't have a range limit.
Just for then
ruin though, yes, fair point. Any slowdown perk, you can always just run ruin instead.
Yeah, and it's not oppression's fault, but when like ruin's in the game, what's the point of running oppression? Like there's no, I don't get it. So I don't know. I think oppressions and porter are pretty bad. Coup de grace is okay.
I'm gonna put her in D.
Okay to worse. Yeah, I'm leaning D. What do you think, Carter?
I'm thinking the same. Like the perks, they get you some value, but the fact that they also give value to survivors.
She's just barely out of poo-poo garbage for me. Like coup de grace is like for me a C tier perk, kinda. I'm a bit higher on it than Spence, but you're not wrong in your critique of it.
That's really the only reason that I haven't tried running it more is I know I'd just waste all the charges and get no use out of it.
Yeah.
Next we have almost to the end here. Trickster. We're gonna have Starstruck, Hex Crowd Control, and No Way Out. Again,
Starstruck is pretty good.
Interested to see how this goes. I think Starstruck. It's either top 10 or like borderline top 10. I think it's
Starstruck's really good.
Really good.
My inclination is to put him in B tier overall.
That's what I'm leaning towards too. Crowd control's pretty bad.
No Way Out makes it slower to open the exit gates.
The more people you hook, yeah.
Not slower, but like just totally blocks it.
Oh yes, it
totally
blocks the gates.
Oh, I'm thinking of Remember Me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, No Way Out is more people you hook, the longer that gate power switch is going to be blocked.
Then crowd control.
And I believe they just recently changed No Way Out, so it doesn't proc until someone gets close to the switch.
Yeah, I think.
And then crowd control is just if you vault a window.
Vault a window quickly and it blocks it. It's a survivor does. It's the survivor version of Bamboozle. For
20 seconds, but it's also a hex perk. So
the real downside to that is it's only until you vault the next window. So if you have like a really good TL wall, it's like nothing changed. Like
only blocks one at a time.
Airing the windows back and forth, and you won't even notice.
Even if there's one window, if you notice, oh crap, this is immediately blocked, you're just gonna get out of there as quick as you can. You're not gonna stay. You're probably not gonna stay unless you have a pallet.
That's a valid thing. It's not always going to be an option just because of the way some tiles are going to generate. But yeah, that is a point against it.
I'm just trying
I think it's still a decent perk.
I'm just trying to think where I'm going to place
it's not
this.
Great.
Yeah, I would much rather just run Bamboozle in that case scenario.
Especially as far as hexes go.
Yeah, like the fact that it's a hex.
My logic, I
I'd
think
say it's a perfectly decent perk, but a weak hex.
I think really I'm surprised. I'm drawing different conclusions here. I think when you have a weak effect that is also a hex that can be cleared at any moment in the game, that's like really bad. Hexes need to be really good for me.
I think part of the thing there is that if it's a weak hex, you also psychologically just don't feel quite as bad about losing it if they cleanse it. But also it can
if you don't feel bad about losing one of your 4 perks, I mean that's saying something about the perk.
You don't feel as bad.
That's saying something about the perk,
say
though.
if you'd lost Ruin, because you build builds around Ruin. You don't generally build them around crowd control. It's not a cornerstone perk. But at the same time, survivors might also see that and go, "Oh, there's crowd control." If you're not also running Ruin, for instance, they might just not waste time cleansing totems, which can be good or bad, but it really it gives you some level of, I guess, ability to influence the survivors psychologically, if that makes sense. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting a little bit big brain here.
Yeah, I think you're galaxy braining us.
The more I think about it, I think I'm just talking myself more and more into it being C tier. I don't see how it can be anything else. I think
Crowd control or
the Trickster?
A Trickster.
I think No Way Out is honestly very decent in its own right. So even if crowd control is bad, I think the other two make up for it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think Starstruck is either S or A.
Yes.
No Way Out is like C plus, maybe B minus.
I can agree with that.
Hex crowd control for me is like D to poo poo.
I'd put crowd control as a solid C personally.
C. Wow, you are so Spence. You are very forgiving.
You're very forgiving.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, I would also put crowd control in like D to poo poo garbage. Probably more poo poo garbage.
Yeah, I think more poo poo.
It's already a weak perk, and that you can also just entirely get rid of it.
I agree. Like it goes back to the logic of if you start off the game with a perk like Noed, or like something that you don't start the game off with it or get it until late. It needs to be super strong. Like that's why Fire Up is bad. For like hexes, if you can lose it at any moment and just have 3 perks the rest of the game, it needs to be solid. That's just my logic. So
yeah, I understand that.
I'll leave Trickster, I think, in C, just because No Way Out and Starstruck kind of pull crowd control up.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that.
Okay.
I'd say like B or C.
Last killer in the game here that was just released, the Nemesis from Resident Evil. We have Lethal Pursuer, Hysteria, and Eruption. Man, remember when this killer came out and we were thinking like, oh my god, like these perks are gonna be so like amazing, and like
nobody runs anything other than Lethal.
Lethal is like, I would say it's an A perk. I don't think it's S.
I don't think it's S, and I honestly would push it closer to B. Like you get a lot of value in the first 10 seconds, but then you just don't have a perk.
I would say A. I think that first 10 seconds is 9 seconds. I think the first 9 seconds, being able to know where people are is huge.
I agree. Plus, if you remember where other people are, like if you look at someone and say, all right, that's the person I'm going to go for right now, but there's like 2 people in that gen to my right, that can give you some value after you get your first hook, or if they escape the chase, you know where to go next. Again, that's more of a mental you need to remember thing, but still, I think. But Hysteria and Eruption, I don't know if I've ever seen anybody use any of those perks recently.
I don't think either of them.
A little bit.
Yeah, I don't think either of them is bad, but I think a lot of people, because you especially, Evan, are playing at relatively high levels, I think a lot of people don't have room to put them into their build because they already have their build solidified.
Yeah.
And these are not overwhelmingly powerful enough to justify removing a meta perk.
I'm thinking D
if that
here.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards D as well.
I was thinking B.
What? How? Yeah. Explain yourself.
Like I said, Lethal Pursuer, I definitely put that in A tier very solidly.
I would agree. I would agree with that.
I'd say Eruption is probably a B.
Really?
It's a little bit more complicated to use, but I would put it about on par with Surge.
Oh,
a
no.
Side grade of Surge.
I hard disagree with that. I think Surge is much better.
Hysteria, I'd probably put like C, maybe D.
I have Hysteria in D, Lethal Pursuer in A, and then Eruption is either C or D
Hmm.
Yeah, for
me.
me they go. Lethal is like a B, Hysteria is like a D, and Eruption is like a C.
I think based on all of our averages, C.
Probably.
Sure.
I don't feel great about it, but
I don't even.
all right. Well, that's the tier list. Done in only 50 minutes. Easy money.
It's 50 minutes.
Yeah,
Jesus.
that one. That dude, time flew. And there's gonna and when we do we're doing Survivor next. We're recording on a different day, of course, but
I'd
that's
expect
gonna
to take an hour for that.
that's gonna be a little bit longer.
least.
I mean, Otz did like an 8-hour video talking about.
I'm not odds.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thanks for doing this, guys. Thanks for the time.
Yeah.
Looking at the list, we only have one in S tier. I'm shocked. I thought we would have at least 2 or 3.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
still personally think Nurse should be up there.
Let me look at Nurse again.
It was just Strider bringing her down, basically.
Yeah, but I think the Nat and Nurses are both so good and so universal.
I can't see a world where Nurse is higher than Plague.
I'd be happy to move Plague up too. I think Corrupt and Infectious are both also really, really strong and universally good.
Yeah.
Nurse's calling is very solid. I think the issue with the Nat is that it's slow down, but doesn't actually let you undo any progress the way that, say, Ruin does. I know you like to run.
Carter's convinced me here. I think I think Corrupt is that
Huntress,
strong.
though.
We're down with the sickness.
Down with the sickness. Oh man, because I can't see a world where Nurse is above Plague. To me, I think like Thanat. Like I don't know if you guys saw Otz's video, but Thanat is of the 4 main slowdown perks. It's the most consistent, but it's the slowest speed.
Mm-hmm.
As far as
the
generation.
slowest, but like you don't risk losing it.
It really does depend on you being able to injure people quickly.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the tier list, everybody. Thanks for watching. Next one will be the same concept, except it'll be Survivor perks. So that'll be a fun time. Like and subscribe. Thanks everybody for watching. See you next time.